with the case of nuclear program, they talk about the nuclear program, but the on the part of Iranians, the main point is if you want to address the nuclear program of Iran, you have to address the clause number 13 in the MOU, and number 13 comes with the number one. It says that you have to abide by number one, number four,
That's
5, and
right.
11.
Bingo. And it's not insinuated verbatim, right? What does the very first sentence of clause number 13 say? After signing the MOU. Has the MOU been signed? Yes. It was digitally signed remotely. And then Donald Trump ceremoniously signed it in the Treaty of, or in Versailles, in a very on the nose ceremonial way. And then it was brought together and reaffirmed in these talks, right? So point number 13, after signing the memorandum of understanding. Okay, we are now at that point of existence. We are now after the signing. Therefore, everything after that introductory paragraph abides, right? So after the signing of the MOU, okay, here we are. And subject to the beginning of the implementation of paragraphs 1, 4, 5, 10, and 11. Not or, not some of, but all 5 of those. And the most important being 1. Number 1. And number 1 clearly dictates the ending of all war on all fronts immediately and permanently. So nowhere in there does it say to end the wars symbolically, right? We can symbolically withdraw, symbolically end the war in Lebanon. No. So the MOU has been signed, it's been agreed upon. Therefore, it abides that 1, 4, 10, and 11, or 1, 4, 5, 10, and 11, and until those are met, nothing else is happening. And that's the ending of the conflict, right? And 4 is the Strait of Hormuz, the United States removing its blockade, right? 5 is the passage of commercial vessels, that Iran would make its best attempt for the passage of commercial vessels, which is already happening. There's Iran's control of it wasn't like a locked gate. The control was implemented through the imposition of military threat. Not, there isn't a physical barrier that like closes the strait and Iran's got the key, right? So boom, 5 is already met on behalf of Iran. Has 4 happened in terms of the removal of the distant blockade? Sure. All you have to do is tell the United States Navy, stop interdicting vessels. Boom, blockade's down, right? Same thing. The United States didn't have a chain link fence strung across the Gulf of Oman with a gate and a key. So U.S. Navy, stop interdicting and stopping vessels. Okay, blockade's removed. Iran, stop threatening any vessels that come through or, up or down, free passage. Okay, done. So that's 4 and 5. 1, like we've already talked about. 10 is the U.S. Treasury will issue waivers. So apparently we've heard that that's happened. And then 11, make available the frozen or restricted funds. I feel like after this latest round where J.D. Vance came out and said, oh, it was great, we really haven't heard much about the release of these frozen funds. We've kind of danced around that with, oh, you give them some waivers, we're going to lift some sanctions. But if you're Iran and you're keeping score, okay, 1, 4, 5, 10, and 11. What about 11? What about 1? The United States doesn't get to just pick and choose the things that it wants to do with this MOU when it's been agreed upon by the United States of America, by the president's hand, and with Iran. This isn't speculation. This isn't, we'll do some of the things. It must be all of the things. So I think this next 60 days is going to be a trudge of, oh yeah, we talked about this. Oh yeah, we did some of this. We did a little of that, but it's still going to come back to that hard point of Israel, Lebanon, and what is Israel going to do? I think that's that's going to be the continual fly in the ointment, or the albatross of this agreement as we go forward. As we've seen, as we know, and as we go forward, that's going to be the issue that the United States is it's kind of like the United States wants to eat eat all the leave the vegetables off to the side. I want to eat all the stuff I like, and I want to eat dessert, but I don't want to touch that. They're going to have to touch it. You're going to have to come up to the table, and you're going to have to eat crow.
Yeah, yeah. I think point one is the most difficult and important one. And here is what J.D. Vance said about Lebanon, by the way, which is related to point one.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. Did you, going in, expect the Iranians to make Lebanon as much of a linchpin as they ended up doing? And how would you describe the progress on Lebanon? I know Mr. Arachi said it was very good progress, but what's your characterization of it?
Yeah, I would describe it as very good progress, too. I mean, look, we want a regional ceasefire, right? We want Hezbollah to stop firing at our friends in Israel. We want Israelis to be able to live in peace. We also want to make sure that, when things happen, they don't spiral into a broader escalation. And so we've been, I think, very good at setting up what we're calling a deconfliction mechanism. But what it really is to say that when things happen, the sides are actually talking to one another. Sometimes, you've got a bit of a chicken and egg problem, that you've got a junior guy who fires a drone that didn't have approval from the high command. Okay, of course, Israel has to respond to that. But then sometimes that response, we could actually have a better and more peaceful situation if Israel responds in the context of a conversation that's ongoing between Hezbollah, Lebanon, Israel, and other partners in the region. There really hasn't been a mechanism to have those discussions until basically around 4 p.m. yesterday, Bergenstock time, when we set that up. So what we're trying to do is to say, first of all, Israel and every other nation in the region has the right of self-defense, but we want to make sure that everybody has that right of self-defense in the background where we're talking about how to de-escalate these conflicts rather than spiraling out of control. Sometimes what will happen is that if the conflict spirals out of control, that's worse for everybody's self-defense and worse for everybody's security. So we've actually got the process in place to ensure that that escalation doesn't happen. Now, I will say you already see the fruits of that. Over the past 24 hours have probably been the most peaceful that we've seen the situation in Lebanon. The previous 24 hours were pretty good. Obviously, there was some shooting about 72 hours ago. So this is a work in progress. But what we've done is actually set up the operation so that we can ensure it doesn't spiral out of control in the future.
Yeah. Looking at what he said, mostly he said that they have created a new mechanism to control what's going on in Lebanon between Iran and the United States. They have established a conflict control unit, and as they call it. I don't know what does that mean, but it seems that the whole case is to control the ceasefire in Lebanon. Maybe he said the other important point that he's mentioned that is not about the Israel's self-defense. It's about other countries' self-defense as well. They have to be able to defend themselves. And I would say these sort of talks, I don't know how honestly he's talking about this. The Iranian reaction to what has happened, considering vis-a-vis Lebanon, it was positive because they feel the same way because the new mechanism is going to work. Let's see what would happen. But do you see the Trump administration somehow forcing the Israelis out of Lebanon or trying to do something to put some sort of pressure on Israelis? How do you see the whole case? The way he was talking, he was somehow politically talking about what has happened. But what is the essence? What was the meaning of what he's been telling us?
I listened to that a little bit earlier when he first had his little remarks, and I immediately thought that his initial synopsis of the conflict in Lebanon, that well, Hezbollah just fires rockets at our friends, and our friends are obligated to respond. And that's like the Wikipedia version of the Lebanon-Israeli conflict, written on the bathroom stall of a dive bar in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. It's not correct. It's not accurate. It's a totally one-sided view, and it's also disingenuous. And that's not an accident. He's obviously still very much, are Israel the victim? Well, he said a lot of words to avoid one very simple point. Israel, leave Lebanon. Leave. Remove yourself from the sovereign land of Lebanon. Leave. How about that? How about we start there? Like, and I'll tell you, this whole symbolic withdrawal or we'll withdraw to other locations still in Lebanon. No, leave Lebanon. Like, what don't you get? Leave. Once you leave Lebanon and we have Israel, you're in your country. We don't have any IDF in Lebanon because right now, as far as I know, there aren't any Hezbollah battalions operating in Israel. So, okay, leave Lebanon. Then we can mark this and say, okay, mind your P's and Q's. Don't shoot, don't shoot, don't cross, don't do this. Okay. Then we can see, where are the lines being drawn. Right now, he talked about, well, you have a lower ranking commander who might fire a drone at somebody. Well, Israel has to respond. Well, is that Hezbollah commander using a drone against an IDF position that is inside the sovereign territory of Lebanon? Well, guess what? Then the IDF have it coming. So the IDF in Israel should leave Lebanon. Then we can have an honest discussion about who's attacking who. Because I don't think it's a question of the chicken or the egg. I think it's a question of the occupier getting their butts handed to them by the resistance in Lebanon. And if Israel leaves Lebanon, then maybe we can actually have a discussion about who's attacking who. Because this true story is much different. But then he goes forward with this deconfliction cell. That is a very military approach to a very sensitive diplomatic problem. And I'll give you a case in point. That deconfliction cell, we'll set up an Israel, US, Lebanon deconfliction cell, and somewhere in there communicate with Hezbollah. That came right out of the Joint Special Operations Command attempts to what we're doing in Syria. Because for example, in Dawazar, you have the United States on one side of the river, you have the Russians on the other side of the river. You got ISIS sandwiched in the middle, going back and forth across the river. I'm talking about the Euphrates River Valley, the middle Euphrates River Valley in northeast Syria. And you've got some Iranian proxy groups operating in there. You got the Iraqi army, 7th Brigade operating along the border. You've got Syrian forces in the south. You got SDF in the north. So the Joint Special Operations Command approach to that was like, hey, we're not going to stop with our kinetic strikes. And it's too much to deconflict with having to go through level A, B, C, D, and E to get a phone call. So we're going to set up a deconfliction cell. We're going to set up a deconfliction cell where we put an American who speaks Russian in a room with a Russian that speaks English, who has communication with somebody, to where whenever something's going to happen, the deconfliction is done at the very tip of the spear, the tactical level. Okay. That works for tactical challenges. That works for, hey, is that you? Or is that you? Hey, you see me, you see you. Don't shoot at me. I won't shoot at you. What are you doing? You shouldn't be doing that. Okay, you're not supposed to be doing that. I'm going to shoot at you. I want you to know I'm going to shoot at you. Tactical deconfliction. He is trying to take a tactical deconfliction method. I know that's where he got it from. I guarantee it. I guarantee that is what the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, Dan Kane, offered to him, because Dan Kane and I were in Syria when that thing was set up. I know that came from Dan Kane. Let's set up this deconfliction cell. Okay. That helps at the tactical level. It doesn't do anything to address the actual strategic implication of the diplomatic problem, which is leave Lebanon. You can deconflict all you want. It doesn't negate the fact that, okay, simple question. I think Iran should walk into that conference room, negotiation room every day and sit down. Have the Israeli forces left back to Israel and they're out of Lebanon? Well, okay, see you tomorrow. See you tomorrow. No reason to go from here. Strait of Hormuz will stay closed. Come in the next day. What's the status on that? Well, okay, see you tomorrow. And we can go on and on and on. Because I'll tell you, to withdraw Israeli forces from Lebanon only take about half a day. You can do it after breakfast and be done before lunch. I mean, you can walk from the border of Israel and Lebanon to the Litani River at a brisk pace in one afternoon. We're not talking about, withdrawing from the Battle of the Bulge or withdrawing from Europe or from the Pacific Theater after World War II. All they have to do is get into their vehicles and drive the other way and not stop. Symbolically. That's it. So until that condition is met, which is a very black and white condition that Israel may not like nor accept, until that condition is met, there's really no argument over who's shooting at who or who's making what decision at the tactical level. Because if you're a Hezbollah commander on the ground resisting Israeli occupation and you make a choice to attack an Israeli outpost that may be attacking you or vice versa, well, guess what? If Israel wasn't there, that wouldn't happen. That's not a chicken and the egg argument. That's a who punched who first argument. Very clearly, you can identify that. So, I think that J.D. Vance used a lot of political flowery language to avoid the central question of Israel's occupation of Lebanon, and then tried to give a very over-embellished description of a deconfliction cell. That's all it is, in terms of how that was going to address the strategic problem. And it's not. I'm telling you, it's fluff. It's smoke and mirrors. It doesn't work. When we were in Syria, when Russian forces attempted to cross the Bakus-Fakani crossing in what's called the Dawazar slice of Dawazar, Syria, to the Tanakh oil fields, that deconfliction cell we set up didn't do a thing to prevent the U.S. striking a Russian convoy and killing 300 Russians. Didn't do anything to negate that. All it was a hotline to where, hey, is that you? Okay, we're about to bomb you. Got it. Okay, so sorry. Don't shoot back. That doesn't de-escalate anything. So when I look at that, I think that right now, in terms of where we stand, until point one is met, we can't move on to 4, 5, 10, and 11. And until we meet collectively 1, 4, 5, 10, and 11, the rest of the negotiation doesn't really matter. And I think that that's just the bottom line reality of the situation.
Yeah. By the way, there are people in Iran criticizing the negotiators, Iranian delegation. Why? What is the main reason to go to these sort of talks if they're not willing to, force Israel out of Lebanon? And here is what the head of Iranian parliament responded in a tweet that he says, I told to those dear ones, he's talking about the people in Iran who are against the negotiations, and he said, if we hadn't gone to Switzerland, every moment more blood would have been shed from the Muslims and Shiites of Lebanon. And basically he's talking about we have to do something about the war in the southern part of Lebanon. Right now there is a ceasefire. That's a huge gain, I think, for the people of that region, that we're Israelis were, they were firing bombs and they're destroying homes, and it's unbelievable what was happening in the last 4 months in the southern part of Lebanon. And that's why I think he has a point mentioning that. If we have a ceasefire, that's helping the people in that region.
Absolutely.
So everything comes next would be welcomed. And they're trying to do, from the point that I see his position, that he's trying to do, let's go with the ceasefire, then put pressure on Israelis to withdraw. I don't know how that's gonna be, how is that gonna be possible? But at least they're talking this way.
Yes.
Tony, look at Lebanon today. Do you think that with the Trump agenda, because we had, I don't know if you saw the Israeli channel 13, it says that Donald Trump is putting pressure. I don't know if these reports are, you know, realistic, but it says Trump is holding back Israel in all the eh, all the arenas, and he's talking about it's not just in Lebanon. It's all those, you know, it's in Gaza, in the West Bank, maybe they're mentioning that, and in Syria, and he's mentioning this and all of those, you know. But do you think the way that Israel is somehow, you see that sort of anger coming out of the Israeli society? They don't feel good about the way that Donald Trump is changing his sort of view toward what's going on in the Middle East. What is your understanding of that? How much of what's going on is real? As how much of what is happening is somehow they're faking some sort of, as you've just mentioned, with the sort of symbolic withdrawal from Lebanon?
Well, we know that the hardline side of the Israeli government wants to continue in Lebanon, in the West Bank, in Gaza. We hear it from them directly. I mean, Ben-Gvir just 2 days ago, you know, talked about how all of Lebanon should burn. We should stay in Lebanon. All of Lebanon should be our playground. Those were his words. All of Lebanon should be our playground, and we shouldn't leave, and it should burn. So to me, it's no secret what Israel's true intent and what they really want to do. Any idea of a symbolic withdrawal or a ceasefire, if anybody is going to hang their hat on the hook of an Israeli ceasefire, then you're going to hang your hat, and about a day later, it's just going to fall off the wall. It's not a good hook to hang a hat on. So the ceasefire, as it stands now, is that great for the people that live in Lebanon that are under siege and bombing and shooting? Yeah, absolutely, it is. But the next step from that is, okay, that shouldn't happen ever again. The people of Lebanon should not be living, ooh, this ceasefire is nice. Hope it doesn't happen again next week. Hope it doesn't happen again next month. That entire threat should be removed before we can actually have negotiations going forward. Is that a new reality in the region in terms of Israel's occupation of, you know, because Israel doesn't just currently occupy physically just that southern portion of Lebanon. It's the southern portion all the way up along the border to Hebron. And then they also occupy in that portion of Syria in the Golan Heights and Sheba Farm, where they also are there. It's not just this little pocket in the south. It's an entire belt. So you can't really go into talking about sovereignty. I mean, the point number 2 of this entire thing is respecting the sovereignty and territorial integrity. If you know, if that's a principle of this, well, that also includes Lebanon. So, you know, I really don't think Trump has really shown us anything yet. There's been a lot of talk, but the ceasefire and the Board of Peace and the UN Resolution 2803 and the peace deal for Gaza, that's all talk. What has that yielded so far? Aid is still cut off. People in Gaza are still starving. In the time between the Board of Peace being initiated and this new peace plan, Israel has further encroached to now taking over 80% of Gaza. People are still starving. People are still dying. Bombs are still being dropped. So how is he pushing back against Israel there, other than just in words? In the West Bank? You'd be foolish to believe that. And the most important part where Donald Trump isn't pushing back in all arenas is in our very own United States Congress. NDAA Section 224. Come on, Israel. Bring it in. Here's the keys to the kingdom. Intelligence Authorization Act 622. Hey, Mossad, CIA, let's make us link. Let's do this. So Donald Trump is not really pushing back in any arena. He's talking a lot. Not only is he not pushing back in any arena in terms of Lebanon, Gaza, the West Bank. He's not even pushing back in the own United States Congress arena. In fact, he's opened the doors wide open. So if the NDAA were to go through and Donald Trump were to veto it because of that section, well, then he'd be pushing back. but he's not. If Donald Trump were actually to enforce the ceasefire in Lebanon, or excuse me, in Gaza, and demand the unrestricted full flow of aid, which was part of the agreement, which isn't happening, well, then you could say, okay, he's holding his ground and pushing back. It's not true. It's not happening. In West Bank, with the encroachment of settlers and furthermore and more of burning of villages, and not just Arab Muslim villages, but Arab Christian villages in Tibet and other locations where we're seeing settlers continue to occupy and move. No one's pushing back against that. So this idea that Donald Trump is pushing back in all arenas, that's laughable, and it's just not true. Is Israel upset with Donald Trump's position or the tone that he's taken over the last week? They are. But I'll tell you what I've said before. Right now, Donald Trump is at a point of choosing America first or Israel first. To continue to put Israel first and not hold the line with this agreement with Iran, which has second, third, and fourth order effects, Gaza, the West Bank, regionally, then Donald Trump is not putting America first. He's continuing to put Israel first. So if Israel is upset that Donald Trump, who is the president of the United States, is putting America first and U.S. interests before that of Israel, quite frankly, for a lot of problems that Israel has created themselves, and that's why they're upset, well, then I guess they're just going to have to be upset.